Hi, it's Hans at ahappierman.com. Today's topic is stop deferring your life. I got to thinking about this as we're dealing with this coronavirus, COVID-19 situation where we're locked down, quarantined, stay at home. We're all kind of being forced to defer our lives. And this very much reminds me of my life in the past, where I was deferring my life, my happiness, all the things I wanted to do. I was deferring them for different reasons. For a while I was deferring my life when I was married. I was just under this continual verbal abuse and problems with my wife and drama and chaos, and I was definitely deferring my happiness because I wasn't happy. I kept hoping that, someday, she'll get nice again and go back to how we were at the beginning of the marriage and relationship. So I was deferring all of my happiness, thinking that eventually things will get good. But see, that was all wrong, to think that I should not be happy every day. Right? In those days, I was rarely happy. Anytime there was, she was in a good mood, it was like, well, I don't know how long this is going to last, because I've seen her and she's been in good moods, and then she'll quickly get into a bad mood and then just make my life, a living hell. So, I couldn't be happy with that situation. I was deferring my happiness to think, maybe someday she'll wake up and be nice again, right? I was deferring it, thinking that my happiness today and my peace of mind and my living circumstances, it wasn't worth it today, right? I was thinking maybe tomorrow, maybe a year from now, maybe 10 years from now. Even at some point I was thinking, I'm a little younger than her, maybe she'll die a little younger than me. When I'm 75, I'll have a little bit of peace and happiness. Do you see how stupidly wrong deferring your life is? Because that's the kind of stupid thing you think about when you don't care about today, the now, the living for today. Every day should be good and happy and whatever. At a minimum, there should be minimal abuse of you in any way, shape, or form. Minimal. Occasionally you might have to tough out a tough, bad situation. Occasionally. Not every day, not every week, not every month. Occasionally you want to be tough enough to handle things like that. But having a wife and a marriage with her, a woman you're living with, that isn't occasional. So I was deferring my life in a very serious way. I got unhappier and more despondent and more depressed all the time, until I woke up and decided to take my life back and stop deferring my happiness. And I left her, and I detail, how I got my mind right and the steps I took to get out of this horrible situation in my book, Leave Your Wife and Become a Happier Man with a 3-Step System, available on ahappierman.com website. But I think a lot of men and a lot of women are kind of stuck deferring their life, thinking that their happiness now isn't important. It reminds me of what we're going through now. It's like, if we don't go out to eat, we don't go to sporting events, we don't do this, we don't do that, we don't gather together, maybe somebody will live a little bit longer. Maybe they will. Can you see what a stupid way of thinking this is? Now, granted, I've given the authorities, give them some latitude, right, to kind of help the situation. We've given the latitude, so it looks to me like things are going to start to get back to a normal way of living, which is what you want. If your normal way of living is how you want to live, maybe your normal way of living isn't how you want to live. And I would argue that you want that however you're living, if it isn't how you want to live, you would start figuring out get your mind right, figure out what that is, what you want your life to be, and then two, start taking the actions for that. So I think we're getting that, let's say, on a nationwide level. We don't want to continue this system with the stay-at-home orders. We don't want to continue this. We'll probably play along a little bit longer, a little bit more, but not much more. I think of it like being patiently impatient, that you can probably deal with a tough situation for a week or two or a month or two, but you cannot live your life in a bad situation and expect it to be any good at all. So let's say the decision is made by somebody, right, that no, we really should stay under quarantine for another 6 months. Well, obviously, some people might be able to handle that, but most of us won't. We'll go crazy, our health will deteriorate, there'll be nothing left to come back to. So let's say the wiser people will prevail and will kind of start easing back to a normal way of living. Now, of course, you'll start to hear on all kinds of media outlets about, well, there'll be a new normal when we get back. Everything will be different. I would say the way you live your life will be how you want it to be. You wouldn't defer your decisions to how you want to live your life to somebody else. You decide. You wouldn't defer your life for somebody else. Like I said, we're giving the authorities and the medical people and the people who are most vulnerable some time. We've given them our permission to do this. We've approved it by our giving of it. But just as we've approved of it now, we can disapprove of it later. Okay? To me, this idea is so critical about deferring. You can be patiently impatient. You know what needs to happen. The economy has to go back to kind of a normal, right? That's what needs to happen. There'll be nothing, if we keep this up too long, there'll be nothing left to come back to, right? Everything will be destroyed beyond repair. So we have to go back to, let's say, normal. But I would say that if your life prior to this wasn't that great, this would be the opportunity to make some big changes. If you're at home with your wife and she's giving you a hard time morning, noon, and night, well, this is the time to leave her, right? I would get my book and make your plans and hire your divorce attorney and do that. I mean, you can't expect to have a good life if you're living that way. If you're in some kind of a job that just seems like it's always up and down, every time there's a little bit of a blip, you get laid off, maybe you want to make another change, right? If you just dread going to work, when you are at work, this would be the time to stop deferring your life and make some changes. I get on my website at happierman.com. I've got a lot of articles and videos kind of explaining how I went from a very unhappy man to very much happier, very happy. Let's say an incredible transformation for me personally to go from where I was to where I am now, and where all the old problems of my past I've solved, and I'm just happily working on a few other things that would make my, let's say, an incredible life even better. A happy, very, very happy, just working toward more happiness. And it's multifaceted, right? You know, how I make a living, relationships I have, the things I do in my spare time, the surroundings I'm in, where I live, who I see, what I do. You know, all these things are built in to make me happy. I've decided to stop deferring my life. I didn't want to continue being verbally abused by my wife, so I left her. I didn't want to deal with my my then ex-wife and all these crazy things that were happening after the divorce. I had to deal decisively with that too. And then I've changed jobs 3 times, and each finally get into this dream job I'm in, and I've moved multiple times. I didn't want to defer my life. My happiness is too important. My health is too important. I had a hernia surgery in 2013, but I had let that hernia build for like a year and a half or more, till it was just unbearable agony that drove me in to get my hernia operated on. And then I had another hernia in 2017, 4 years later. And then as soon as I got the hernia, within a month of getting it, I got the operation and recovered much, much faster. And it was much less severe and much, much less problems. Because I had learned to stop deferring my life. That there's no sense in deferring it. What makes me think I've got so much time? I went to 4 funerals last year. The oldest person was 73 who died. There were 2 people in their 40s and 1 at 19. What makes you think you've got so much blasted time to defer your life? Right? What makes you think that? What makes me think that? 4 of my high school classmates are dead in their 40s. Right? There's no sense in deferring your life, whatever massive problem that's just giving you misery on a daily basis. And it's usually going to be a marriage, and it's usually going to be a job, and it's usually going to be where you live. There'll be these huge frustrations. You may be just massively in debt. And in all cases, there are solutions. Massive debt, you can go bankrupt. A bad marriage, you can go get a divorce. A bad job, you can get a different job. If you hate where you live, you can move, right? All these things I've done. And I'm so happy I've done them. I've gotten all these bad things out of my life and can build from there. And then once you get rid of some of this massive problems in your life, you've got the time and the energy to think about adding in some good things. The good things. I want different relationships. I want to go out with different girls, get to know them, have some fun. I want to travel. I want to go see that, this, that, and the other thing. There's all these things I haven't done that I want to do. I want to explore the area I live in. I want to move to a different area. I want to start talking to the people I love the most in the way I want to talk to them. I want the deep conversations and the love shared and the hugs given and the life increase that comes with that. You see what I mean? All that good stuff in life comes about when you stop deferring your life. All for now.